add up to what? 1? Because it'll make 100%. And each probability is between what two numbers? 0 and 1. Every probability has to be between 0 and 1. They cannot have a negative number in there. There's no negative probabilities, nothing over 100%. Definitely could be 0 or 1. All right, an industrial psychologist administered a personality inventory test for passive-aggressive traits to 150 employees. Each individual was scored from 1 to 5, where 1 is extremely passive and 5 is extremely aggressive. A score of 3 indicated neither trait. Results are shown on the left. Do you guys know about passive and being aggressive, the differences? Like if you have a conflict with somebody, and what would an extremely aggressive person do with a conflict? Aggressive doesn't necessarily mean being mean. It means that they would tackle it head on. So like if they had a fight with their friend, that they would either get into an argument, they could get into a physical fight, or they would immediately discuss it and figure out what's going on. A passive person, an extremely passive person would be like, I would rather be wrong on things I know I'm right than get into an argument with somebody. Or they would hope that it basically just passes them by, that kind of thing. Most of us are probably in between, like a 3 or a 4 or a 2, a little bit more passive, a little bit more aggressive. But this does not mean necessarily that you are against fighting, and this doesn't mean that you're really into fighting. It just means that a passive is more about like avoiding things, and aggressive is more about like going after things. Neither one are great. Probably somewhere balanced in the middle is the best way to go. You don't want to fight somebody about every single thing, but also you don't want to be walked all over. So it's kind of a thing. So if you're going to do a probability distribution, what you do basically is you figure out the probabilities of every single thing, and you put it right next to here. So this is the probability, P of x, which means probability of something happening, and x being the score over here. So how do I find out the probability of x given what we have? This is all empirical data. I'm going to use only this data here.
You're just going to like take one of the frequencies and divide it by 150.
Right, because these add up to 150, which is said right here. But also if you actually added them up, they would add up to 150. So in your calculator, for the first one, you're going to take 24 divided by 150, which is 16%. For these, let's say round to the nearest, 3 digits like usual. These ones are all just happening to be hundredths. When you're done and you add these up, they should equal to 1, and that's something you should check every time. To find a mean of a discrete random variable is just a summation of all the data points times their probabilities. So I would take 24 times 16%. Sorry, not 24, 1. Because 1's the actual data point. 24 was just the count. %, times 2, 3 times 28%, 4 times 20%, and 5 times 14%. I got 2.94. Anybody else do it? Did you get 2.94? Remember, that's not an M, that's a mu. It's a U with a tail off the front. Yeah? Okay. Now, that should make sense to you, because what you're trying to find out for the mean is essentially what is the average score of a person. Like if this was our school and we had 150 people participate, the average score would be 2.94, which makes sense. It's a little bit below 3, right? So our school would be like slightly more passive than it is aggressive if this was our school. What's a number that would be completely unreasonable for the mean here? 22. True. Because the scores only go from 1 to 5, right? So if we're trying to find the average score, 22 is ridiculous. Now, that would be an easy thing to do if you had done what I did, which was 24 times 16, 33 times 22, right? You would have ended up with a score that was high in the 20s or the 30s, which you should have immediately recognized was like, oh, well, that can't be true.